I didn't hate the Stranger Things ending. I hated it for what it made me realize about myself and about growing up. I've just finished season 5 like many others and I'm still sitting here thinking about it. Not in a was it good or bad way, but in a way where a show quietly hands you a mirror and asks you to look at who you used to be. From day one, I think Stranger Things never pretended to be original for the sake of originality. It carried its influences like memories. You could feel E.T. in the friendship, Stephen King in the shadows, A Nightmare on Elm Street in the terror, Lord of the Rings in the Fellowship, and honestly, a little bit of every movie we loved when our imagination was louder than our fear. And for those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, it was never just nostalgia. It felt like someone remembered the exact temperature of our childhood and lit it back up. And the finale, it didn't go for shock value. It went for closure, or at least the closest thing to closure life ever gives. Vecna and the Upside Down are defeated not in a perfect cinematic triumph, but in the kind of victory that costs you something. Eleven's final act feels like a goodbye, but the show leaves the door open just enough for hope to slip through. Alive or gone, it becomes something personal. The answer you choose says more about you than the show. And Dustin standing at his graduation giving a speech with a heart that's older than his age, and a beautiful tribute to Eddie. Lucas and Max still finding their way back to each other, Joyce and Hopper planning a real life beyond survival, and Steve actually becoming the kind of man he never thought he would be. Nancy and Jonathan choosing separate growth without bitterness, and Will finally starting to step into himself instead of waiting for his life to begin. Mike is still learning what to do with a love that doesn't fit neatly into the world. And then that rooftop moment. Jonathan, Steve, Nancy, and Robin talking about meeting once a month. That one hit me hard. Because when you're young, you believe those promises are simple. You think adulthood is just more time and more freedom. But when you've lived a bit, you know those once a month plans turn into we'll see, until one day they turn into memory. That scene wasn't dramatic, but it was honest, and honesty is harder to watch than monsters. But that moment that stayed with me comes at the end, the final Dungeons and Dragons game. Mike shares that little in universe story about Eleven, the idea that maybe she didn't die, maybe she escaped, maybe she's somewhere peaceful, or maybe she found a door no one else could open. It doesn't confirm anything, it just invites belief and hope. And that's the perfect ending because childhood is about belief and hope. Meanwhile, adulthood is deciding which beliefs you're willing to keep. They finish their campaign, they close the books, they pack up the dice, and for a second, the basement feels like it's holding its breath. Mike lingers a little longer than the others. He watches Holly and her friends take the table, sitting where he once sat, rolling dice like magic still exists in ordinary rooms, and it suddenly feels like the baton is being passed. Their story isn't erased, it becomes foundation for someone else's. So no, I didn't hate the ending. I hated what it reminded me of. That growing up means some adventures only happen once, that some goodbyes never sound like goodbyes, and that childhood ends long before you notice it's gone. But I'm glad the show let these characters grow up, because in a strange way, it gave the rest of us from the 80s and 90s a permission to grow up too.